Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Amber May here, and today I wanted to share with you guys my birth story. Noah, I might have to hold Noah like the whole way through this video because he doesn't want to be put down much at the moment. He's probably glaring at me. Look at that face. What's up, baby? So yeah, I wanted to go through my birth story because when I was pregnant I did watch quite a lot of birth stories, but I only really watched positive ones, which is definitely you make me laugh, buddy. I only really watched positive ones, and I kind of wish I just watched any, like, because not every birth story is completely positive and like, you know, like flowers and rainbows. And yeah, before I get into my birth story, mine isn't negative. Like, it's definitely not negative, but it's not completely positive either. I did really struggle throughout most of my labour. What are you looking at? The window. We've just been on a walk. We could have looked at the proper sky. Yeah, mine is sort of, there's ups and downs. Excuse you, Noah. That's stinky. That is stinky. Have you got something brewing for me after this video? I kind of did want to do this video when he was a bit more settled, but it's just, there's just never a good time, like literally. So this video is going to be a long one. Just sort of disclaimer, like, my birth story isn't 100% positive. There was some really rough, difficult times. So if you feel like you don't want to watch it if you are pregnant, then that's completely, like, I did the same thing. But let's just get started. So my birth story, I have a whole load of notes here. Like, I had to go through it and sort of really break down everything because I literally, it's weird how they say the day you just forget it, and it is literally so true. So it started on Christmas Day, still in 2022. It was sort of like the evening. Me and Harry were just chilling on the sofa, and I kind of moved funny, like I was kind of sat weird, and I went to get up and I felt just a bit of a gush. Like, it's weird thinking back now, I can see how it was my water's breaking, but at the time, when you're that heavily pregnant, you're kind of weeing yourself a little bit and you get so much discharge. I just literally, I did have an inkling that it was my waters, but I was just like, it can't be. Because at this point I was still only 38 weeks, and it was only a tiny bit. So I just labelled it as discharge, and was just like, it can't be. What's up? Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah? And I suppose in hindsight I definitely should have trusted my instinct more and got it checked out, but when it's your first pregnancy, people are always like, you're going to be late, and you always hear how people get sent home if they like go to the hospital, and I was just like, I'm probably wrong, which I wasn't, but there you go, trust your instinct. So now I experienced that again a day or two later, and I then started to have at that point some very like intense contractions. I thought they were Braxton Hicks, but I now definitely do think they were actually contractions. This was about a week before I actually went into hospital. And so the doctors actually told me when I went to the hospital that they were probably real, and that it was probably my body going into labour and then stopping. Whoa. Oh yeah, you're tired. I'm sorry, I keep having to pause. And then on the 29th of December, Harry passed his driving test in the morning, and I literally had hardly any sleep, due to like just the stress of him passing. I just wanted him to pass so bad because I knew how much it meant to him, and I was just worried about that. And also these Braxton Hicks, whatever they honestly were, I have no idea, just kept me up most of the night. So I woke up already in like not in a great place because I was just exhausted. And then I experienced these Braxton Hicks contractions, pains on and off all day. Like I remember sitting in the car once he'd passed, because he did pass, by the way, I don't know if I said that, and just being in so much pain. And in this point, because it'd been a few days since I'd experienced that sort of leaking, I did have just a really big feeling that he was gonna come early, because on this day I turned 39 weeks. I just had a feeling that labour was close by, so I was getting concerned. But it was weird because I had literally had a midwife appointment that day, and I explained everything to her, and she didn't seem concerned at all. Like, she didn't insist on checking me or anything, and she was just like lightheartedly like, oh, maybe I won't see you at your 40-week appointment then. So I was just like, okay then, like, Noah, what is up? So at that night on the 29th, I actually started to bleed, and I was also having really bad pain down there, so bad I actually couldn't eat that night. I remember we had a takeaway and I just literally struggled so much to eat it, and I had a bath and to relax, and it did actually really relieve the pain. And then after I got out of the bath, I started to bleed. I just remember sitting on my bed, Harry coming in and being like, you're bleeding, and it was pretty heavy, and like it was literally like period blood, and it was literally so terrifying. I remember just freezing and not knowing what to do, and I was just thinking about it. No, just like, oh God, that is like, bleeding is the worst thing you want to. Baby boy, are you hungry again? 1 second. I will be right back, guys. Okay guys, we're back. If you're wondering what that noise is, it's Noah. So yeah, on the 29th I started to bleed, and I had to ring the hospital. We rang them and they said, like, you know, come straight in. But it wasn't like an emergency. It was just kind of, you know, come before bedtime kind of thing. We went straight away, because bleeding is the absolute last thing you want to see when you're pregnant. It's so terrifying. Can't even like describe. It's just awful. I hope nobody ever has to feel that, because it's just really not nice. They told us to come in. They were concerned, but they said it's most likely nothing, which it wasn't, but it was something. But they were just like, it's most likely nothing, it can be normal to bleed, they said. And also I think they wanted us to come in because of my blood type. I have a funny blood type. It's like a rhesus negative. Is that nice, darling? So me and Harry went in. We checked the hospital bags in the boot just in case, which I'm so glad we did. I was absolutely stressed out. I've never been so stressed in my life. We forgot the notes. I was just kind of in hysterics, like just so stressed. We left the house in an absolute tip. I mean, I was tired, in pain. I was just not in the right state of mind to give birth, and I just felt really weak, like physically and mentally. And I just thought to myself, like, if I have to give birth today or tomorrow, like, this is just gonna be awful. Like, I did not feel ready at all, because all I wanted, like, before labour was to have a good night's sleep. Like, I don't know why, but that's just always something that I've been like, if I get a good night's sleep before, then that'll just be so much better. and it's just funny that I got an awful night's sleep before. But anyway, so we went in, got lost, realised we forgot the notes, parked in the wrong car park. It was just a chaotic experience. And then when we finally got to the right place in the hospital, they gave me a bed and they hooked me up to this machine. And honestly, when I saw baby's heart rate, Noah's little heart rate, I was just so relieved. That's all I cared about, and I knew everything after that was going to be okay because Noah was okay. So it was just such a relief. So then I was hooked up to this machine. Sorry if I keep looking this way, it's just because all of the notes are there, which tracked mine and baby's heart rate and also my contractions. So that took notes for about an hour, and we waited literally like 4 or 5 hours to be seen by a doctor. And by this point I was in a lot of pain with contractions, because I had contractions that evening. They didn't stop, like I was this whole time just in pain. I had no medication, nothing to drink, nothing to eat. I literally couldn't lie down. Like, I don't know why, but all my contractions, they're the worst when I'm laid down. Then the doctor came and they did an examination on me with them sort of tools that they use, a speculum I wrote here, a weird scary looking tool that they use for smear tests. So yeah, they tried to use that, but they literally couldn't because baby's head was so low. So I tried a few times. It was literally so painful. Harry was like, are you okay? I was like, yes. So he gave up on that and just examined me normally, and they then found out that baby's head was really low, although I already knew that because they kept telling me that at my checkups and at my ultrasounds and stuff. But they said that, and that I was 1 centimetre dilated. And then they gave me this thin swab thing that I had to sweep round, and it can detect amniotic fluid. So they gave me that to do. I did it, gave it back to them, and then they came back like 2 seconds later saying my waters are broke. I was literally like in shock. I was like, oh my god, because I still had an inkling that I was kind of in labour and things were happening, but I think I was literally just in denial. I was like, when we put the hospital bags in, I was like, there's no way we'll have baby, but we should put them in case. I think I was definitely in denial, but I was just in shock when they said my waters broke. I was literally so scared. This whole time they were examining me, I was terrified. I was literally shaking uncontrollably. Because it's weird, like, until you're pregnant, you've never had someone invade your privacy like that. Like, it's just scary and really uncomfortable. I definitely would have rather known that my waters had broke than them just not doing it. So my waters hadn't fully broke, they had partially broke, which was why I didn't notice it, and which explains the tiny trickle that I felt a few times. Within the next 5 minutes, they literally said I wasn't going home, I was going to be induced, and that I was going to have baby, and I was absolutely terrified. I didn't want to do it. I was just in shock. I literally just wanted to run and hide. I was just like, oh my god. It was all just a bit too much at that point. It was like 2 a.m. and I was just, we've been in hospital since about 9-10 p.m. and I was just like, oh my god. So after that, another doctor came in and asked how I was feeling, and I had said how long I'd been feeling pain and like the fluid, and said about 5 days, and they basically then said they were going to induce me as soon as possible, because as if your waters break, the longer you go without giving birth, the higher risk of infection. And obviously if mine has been like 5 days, the risk of infection is really high. And also with the bleeding, they said it could be a problem with my placenta. So with both of them things combined, and me being 39 weeks and like baby full time and everything, they were just like, we are going to induce you. as soon as possible, you're not going home. Yep, so they left. They brought me to a different ward. They put a cannula in my hand and I had to have another anti-D injection, which is for my specific blood type. And they really hurt their massive needle. Harry went home to get more things and I was just still in a lot of pain. They said my body was in labour, but they said that it will probably stop by the morning, and it did. They think that's obviously, like I said earlier, what my body was doing for a while. I was at the top of the waiting list to be induced, but there was still no rooms available, so we spent all night on a ward with loads of other women, I think waiting to be induced as well. But yeah, so it was just literally waiting. I hardly slept at all because I was in a lot of pain. I did ask for paracetamol and another drug, I can't remember the name, but they did really help, and they just sort of really relaxed me so I could actually get some rest, even if it wasn't sleep. So that night was very confusing, very shocking, just a lot. I just did not feel prepared at all, and I woke up the next day and I'd had like 2 days of hardly any sleep, and I just felt so exhausted, and I just thought to myself, like, how am I gonna do this? Because I know that obviously so many women are in labour for like 24 hours, 30 hours. I was just like, oh my god, I can't do this. So that was already my mindset before going into labour, which I feel like that would be anyone's mindset if they hadn't slept in 2 days and just been told they were gonna have their baby a week early, like. But so that was my mindset. It wasn't great. Then we met the midwife who was going to be delivering Noah. She was really nice, she was very bubbly. She was like, let's go have a baby. So about 10 a.m. on the 30th of December, we went down to the delivery ward, and it was like a little room. It looked completely different to what I was imagining giving birth in like this lovely big room with a big bath and a water bath and all these nice lights, and it was a lot different. It was like a hospital room with a bed. So I was just feeling a bit like just scared and just not prepared, but I was like, I did give myself a little pep talk. I was like, I've just got to do this. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I've just got to. So I at least thought I need to eat, because when you're induced, when they put you on the IV, you can't eat at all, and you can drink Lucozade, but I didn't even drink Lucozade because my labour was so fast. Harry didn't want to leave. So you can drink Lucozade, so definitely take them. I bought them, we didn't even take them though. But yeah, so when you're induced, you can't eat. So I said that I wanted to have some toast before being induced. So that really helped, actually. Having that little bit of food gave me a massive boost, and I felt a lot better. I had a cup of tea as well, a bit of caffeine. I was feeling a lot better. I was just thinking, I hope this isn't long. So she did some checks, and then I was officially induced around 11ish in the morning on the 30th of December. And she also fully broke my water with this tiny hook thing. It looked a lot scarier than it actually was. I didn't really find it painful at all. It just felt really strange because there was so much liquid. Like, I can't imagine your water's fully breaking at home. Like, it was a lot. So she had to break it in 2 places. And then I was hooked up to the medicine. They were kind of saying that they were gonna have to be careful with how much they give me because I was so little. Because I am quite petite. And then for about 20 minutes I didn't have any bad contractions. I was just chilling on my phone, and Harry was next to me. And let me just also add that he was also exhausted. He'd been up in the night. He had to drive home at like 3 a.m. to get my medical notes, and he was also exhausted, so I was kind of worried about him as well. The midwife was just doing stuff on the computer, and then about 20 minutes in, half an hour, they started to really pick up, and I found it really hard to stay laid down, so I had to sort of sit up and get up and walk around, which did help. Yeah, I also had gas and air, although I was not using it right at the start. But I honestly didn't think gas and air was that great at all. You can have more in a minute. I'm trying to get your burps out, darling. So yeah, I had gas and air, but I wasn't really using it, and when I was not doing it right. And I just could feel that it was starting to make me feel sick, and I just knew I was gonna throw up. Like, honestly, as the contractions started getting worse and as I was trying to use it more and more, I could just feel myself getting more and more sick, till I literally just threw up everywhere. I threw up everything that was in my tummy. It was awful. So after that, just completely stopped using the gas and air at all, because it just made me feel worse, honestly. And I also kept feeling like I needed the loo, and at this point my contractions were literally so painful. But standing up and sort of leaning over, I had the birthing ball, sort of leaning over that felt better. Not like it was still so painful, but it was almost bearable at that point in the early stages of it. And it feels nice when someone like rubs your lower back. Harry was doing that, so I was sort of just doing that for ages. I sort of kept complaining that I needed the loo, and the midwife was like, no you don't, you drunk nothing. But I actually just kept needing the loo because a baby's head was so low. And I think that's also just how contractions make you feel. Like, I've heard other people say that, but I kept having this sensation that I really needed to wee. So she used a catheter a few times, and oh my god, that was just unbelievably so uncomfortable, so awful. If you have a catheter, anything in your bladder will come out, and there was nothing there. So I did that for nothing, like a few times as well. They were getting more and more intense, and around 12:30 they were so intense and painful, and I was struggling a lot. And I'd watched like one video on how to birth, like breathe, so I was really trying to deep breathe, and I was doing really well at it actually. So much so that I literally felt really faint, because I kept breathing so heavily, like just constantly. So I felt really faint, but it's definitely, breathing does help. You just have to do it correctly, I found, because at this point I still wasn't really breathing correctly. Yeah, so I just felt really faint, and I was just literally in agony. It went from like 0 to 100 so quick. At this point I was like literally crying tears, and I was upsetting Harry. He was crying because I was struggling so much and I was in so much pain. And I could see him messaging my mum, but it's so weird when you're in that much pain. You literally, I could not focus on anything. I just felt so dazed. I just remember looking around the room like, oh my god. I was just focusing on getting through each contraction, and there wasn't, like, people say that they had time between their contractions. I was like, there was like contraction constantly. Like, I maybe had a 30-second break in between every like 2 contractions, but honestly there was hardly any break, and I don't know why. I have no idea, because at that point I was only 3 centimeters dilated, because she did check me at that point, because she could see I was like really struggling. And at that point when she said I was 3 centimeters, I just started panicking. I was like just saying I couldn't do this. I was just in floods of tears. Like, it actually makes me feel sad thinking back at it, because I was just at breaking point. Honestly, I was just, I don't know, I was just like in so much pain. So I was just at my limit emotionally and physically. So I requested an epidural. And after I requested it, I was like, why did I not do this sooner? And I just wanted it that second. But in hospitals, things don't really work that fast. And she said it was going to take maybe like an hour to 40 minutes for it to like be, for them to do it and to start working. And I was just like, oh my god. But after that, she gave me an anti-sickness. After I'd requested it, she gave me an anti-sickness jab, which really helped. Definitely get that if the gas and air just makes you vomit, because it really helped me. It stopped me feeling sick when I was using the gas and air, like 100%. Like I didn't feel sick at all after having that. I mean, I don't know if that was just because I'd thrown up everything in my body or what, but yeah. So I had that. That was really positive, and it did help me because I could actually start using the gas and air properly. So at this point I'd used nothing. I mean, the gas and air a few times, but then I'd completely thrown everything up and I stopped using it. So I started to use it again, and the gas and air, I don't know what the hype is about. I just did not find it that good at all. It's very much just like a distraction. I suppose that's the best thing about it. I found that was the best thing about it for me. But it does not get rid of any of the pain. You just kind of feel like, I don't know if anyone's ever been like high from a vape, you just kind of feel like that. But I guess it does relax you. But the thing I found the most good about it was just that distraction, just literally just sucking it, just breathing it in. And but you know, anything to help is good. I really wish I'd used the combs. I've seen so much on Instagram about using a comb during, like, to grip it during labor, and I literally bought one, and I just was in such daze I did not even think about it. I should have told Harry about it, but anyway. And at this point I was just literally screaming in pain. I was being so loud, and I was very conscious of how loud I was being. But the midwives are really nice. They're like, don't worry about it at all. I was just in agony, and yeah, it was another hour before I got my epidural and it started to work. So another hour goes by, and it is weird because looking back, the last like 10 minutes of that hour before I got my epidural, I did actually start to really breathe properly. Like, I was definitely getting better at controlling myself and the contractions, because I started to find that the more I panicked and freaked out, the worse the contraction was. So I still had, like, I'd probably say I freaked out for a contraction, the next one I would try and control, and then I would freak out again and try and control it again. So I was slowly getting better. I think maybe giving it more time, maybe different setting, like if I'd have slept good the night before, like all these different factors had been a bit different. I think maybe like I could have done it without the epidural, but who knows, honestly, who knows. But looking back on this experience, if I was to do this exact experience again, I would get the epidural like right at the beginning, honestly. I was just literally in survival mode. And then the anaesthetist came in about 30 minutes later into this hour before, because it took them a while to get it in and working. And she had to read out this long list of terms and conditions, and I was just like, oh my god, are you serious? To get an epidural, you have to stay extremely still. So I had to compose myself, and I had to lean forward as far as I could, and be completely still, which when you're in so much pain is really hard. But I did it. I think I was just thinking like, well, I was just thinking like, if I just have to do this and then it will be over. So they did the epidural. They had to do it twice, which was annoying. But eventually they got it in, and they started putting the medicine in, and it would just all started to feel so much better. And when it fully kicked in, it was honestly just bliss. I remember that moment. It was just a relief, honestly. I literally fell asleep, like my whole body just relaxed after being like rigid for like a few hours, and it was just so nice. I didn't feel anything. I literally just fell asleep. Kind of, I was in a light sleep. I wasn't fully out, but I was like just eyes closed like that. And then I literally had 15 minutes of peace before my body started to bear down, which was a term before I was pregnant I would have had no idea what that meant. It literally just means that your body is really pushing baby down, and I think it might mean that their head is coming through the dilation bit. I don't know the science, but my body started to really bear down, and this felt really alarming and painful. I'm not gonna lie, I really did feel it, and I literally stood up with an epidural, and the force and the pressure was just so strong. It was really scary, and I just started uncontrollably shaking again, because I knew that baby was going to be here soon, that I was going to have to start pushing soon. But the midwife who was in the room at the time, because the one that had been there from the start was actually on her lunch break, the midwife was like, no, you've only been in labour for like 3.5 hours, you can't be 10 centimetres. But I was making a lot of noise, I was in a lot of pain again, and like discomfort. It wasn't agony, but it was just so uncomfortable. It wasn't like contractions at all, though. It was such a completely different kind of pain. So my original midwife came back off a break, and I kept saying that I felt the urge to push, and they were kind of just slowly doing stuff because I guess they didn't really believe me. But my original midwife went to check my dilation, and she was like, oh my god, I can see baby's head, you're obviously 10 centimetres. That's what makes me think that means the baby's head is coming through. I don't know. Anyway, so if they can see baby's head, that means you're definitely 10 centimetres. So I was literally like, had 15 minutes of peace, and then I was pushing him out, and I was just terrified. I remember grabbing Harry's hand. I actually grabbed the midwife's hand. The midwife was like, you hold Harry's hand. I just needed to grab something, because it was just such a weird, uncomfortable feeling. But it definitely was not as bad as the contractions, but that was with the epidural, so I don't know what it would be without it. I'm just so glad that I had it at that point. And I kept asking them why it still hurt, and they were like, because you need to know when to push. I was like, I don't want to know. I was just like, I had to compose myself. I was just like, stop moaning and just do it, because at this point I was like, if I don't push this baby out, I've been prodded and poked so much, I have no idea what they're gonna, I was like, I am not going through an episiotomy, forceps, whatever it is that they do to you if you can't push a baby out. I was like, I just cannot. So I was just like, Amber, you better just push this baby out, and I did. So that was my main, like, I can't even think of the word, but I literally just pushed as hard as I could. Harry literally said I went like bright red every time, and I only pushed for about 15 minutes, and then he was here. I remember, I think I did around like 10 really big pushes, and then that's all it took. It was literally, it was painful and it was super uncomfortable, but it was just, I was just like, it needs to end. I was just like so determined to get it over with. And I remember the midwife saying, look down and you'll see his head, and I looked down and I could see his head, and I was like, oh my god. I was just like, oh my god, that's my baby's head. And I remember Harry saying at that point, like, is he okay? Harry was also crying at this point, like from just like emotion and everything, and also just at this time it was happy tears and not sad tears, which is good. And then his body popped out and it just felt so like a relief. It was just like a relief to it finally being over. So he was born at 3:06 p.m, exactly 4 hours after being induced on the 30th of December 2022. And yeah, he was placed on me, and I have never been in so much awe in anything in my entire life. I literally loved him so much from the moment he was placed on me. It just felt right. I wasn't scared. All the worry and everything about him being born was just gone. It was just like bliss. It was so nice. I hope everyone gets to feel that feeling, and I'll never ever forget that moment. I will literally treasure it forever. So yeah, it just made it all worth it. And it's strange how as soon as it's over and you have your baby, all the pain doesn't even matter. Like, yeah, it's just amazing really what our women's bodies can do. But yeah, they weighed him and he was 6.35 pounds. I had no tears, which was so amazing. And then my parents came that night to see him, and I net too and check him for infections a few times, and it was just so amazing to have him in my arms. Honestly, I couldn't have been more grateful for him and for Harry and for the midwife and for my family, and I was just like so happy. Yeah, straight after he was born, I breastfed him, and we did that about literally like an hour, and it was just amazing. So lovely. And then we got sent off to our room in the maternity ward. That's it. Honestly, my birth was magical, amazing, painful, exhausting. There was times where I literally fully believed I couldn't do it, and times where I was like, come on, you've got this, just do it. And it was every emotion I felt during labour, which is exhausting in itself, but at the end of it, it was one of the best days of my life, because it was the best day of my life. Sorry. Noah was born. I would honestly do it 100 times over for him. But yeah, that was my labour story. I guess you make your own opinion on whether you think it's a positive one or a negative one, but it's definitely, to me, it's definitely a bit of both. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Noah is literally fast asleep on me. If you did, please give a big thumbs up. I'm sorry if it was a long one. I did kind of want to do it fast, but I knew I had so much to say that it wasn't going to be a fast video. But yeah, if you did stay to the end, then thank you, and I'll see you guys next time.